Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. All things Middle Earth here with a gold gear tier list. We went through on stream a couple weeks ago and ranked every single piece of gold gear in the game. It was quite a process, over 2.5 hours long, and I've edited that down to as clean and short as it can be for a very long tier list. So this is the long version of that where it's edited together, but it's still the full conversation around all the pieces and why they rank, where they rank, and all that good stuff. So again, all that's coming up in a second. If you would like to skip to a certain part, in the description down below, as well as in the play bar, there are chapters, so you can jump to whatever item you want to hear about or look at. Maybe you just hold an item, want to see where it ranks overall. You could also go to the end of the video and just see the final tier list, or look in the description. There's a picture of the final tier list that's in the description as well. So lots of options for you, but hopefully you all enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the description below if you prefer this long format that covers the entire conversation, or a shorter form version, which is also linked down below, where it basically is just, here's the final tier list, here's the reasoning behind the actual tiers. This is all the information. So let me know what you guys prefer. We're trying a short and long version for a couple of our tier lists here to see if there's a preference in the community, and if there's enough for both, we'll just keep doing both. But as always, I'm happy to hear any feedback on how to improve this type of content. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into the tier list. Anyway, first one on the actual list is going to be the Axe of Khazad-dûm. Let's hop back over. Isn't that just a nice snazzy transition there? I love when things work out. So the Axe of Khazad-dûm, again, the effect that we're going to look at is going to be cleave. I don't think I'll do this for everyone, but what we're looking at is, I just knowing what the effects are, know that for the most part, cleave is going to be considered the best in slot effect on that, which is going to be pretty much your best in slot standard for all of your damage dealing commanders. Now, some people run lethal weapon on the Hammer of Moria on some of them, but your non-R10 Gimlis, your Dwallins, your Danes, that kind of thing, I see them running Axe of Khazad-dûm or the Hammer of Moria. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think the Axe of Khazad-dûm is probably Balrog tier. The only reason I consider it lower is I have a personal lack of whatever. I don't love damage dealing commanders as much, just personally. So for me, if I saw it, it'd probably be lower. But overall, if someone were to pull an Axe of Khazad-dûm with cleave very standardly, I'd say, yeah, that's got use on several commanders in each tier. You know, that's one. If you're running that type of commander, you're going to run that item. Anybody disagree with a Balrog tier ranking for the Axe of Khazad-dûm to start off? Best in slot for most damage commanders, I'd say qualifies for Balrog. I think so. Again, like I've said, the goal is not, when they're up here, I want it to be clear that if you're a brand new player watching, I want it to be clear, like, don't get rid of items up here without maybe consulting someone first to make sure you're not getting rid of a really good item that you can't get back. And if it's down here, whatever it is, you're good. That's the thing. Next up is going to be this one. I don't think I'm going to rank very highly because it's pretty underused. Belt of the Citadel. It's an accessory. It's very newly in the chest, so I don't even know a lot about it. Iron Guard's a good effect. Might and Focus. I could see this one again off the white, but I don't. What do people usually run again off the white for accessory? You have Maras Reigns. You could have. What else would you run? Smoking Pipe. I think it's underused because it's only now available in the chest, and I don't doubt that, like, on Gandalf the White, a fully refined Iron Guard Belt of the Citadel wouldn't be solid. Fiddle is another one they use. That's right. This would be one that, like, is so situational. So again, like, I don't think it's like the standout best in slot for Gandalf the White. And then you start looking at who else you have available, because HP for men. So you're like, maybe, no, it'd be a stretch for Gandalf. Yeah, it used to only be available in the gear chest, like the accessory gear, or where you pick the type, and now it's in the chest. I think if you had this and for some reason had a lot, you could run it on Gandalf the White with Might and Focus, HP for men, like a cavalry men group comp with Iron Guard, melee, whatever, or Might and Men, you'd probably be okay. I think that's like this could work, not this is the best in slot you should be going for, and it's not. So there's nobody else I can think of. So for that reason, I'm thinking Dust. I mean, it's not bad. That's why I'm considering C, just because it's like, if you happen to get a few of them, it could be useful if you're running Gandalf the White. But this is like one, it's very bottom of the barrel right now. There are others that are just bad, outright bad, that are in dustbin for sure. So we'll put it there. Again, as we fill the list up, if we feel differently, we'll look different. Next up is going to be the Chieftain's Gaze, which I'm going to preemptively put in the dustbin. Might focus army attack for Urukai. Yeah, I mean, the only I do with the Berserker's Gaze is like a gold potential for Witch King, and I know Netherese runs that. But all these effects, none of them really match up with like because Urukai attacks Witch King. Like that's Alchemist or anybody that would use Alchemists, and that none of these really stand out. I think they would not be best in slot. So that's a pretty clear dustbin in my opinion. So we're gonna keep them there. Next up, this one is, I think this is gonna be a non-argued one, which is, I think some are going to be. This is gonna be non-argued. The Cask of the Submerged Isle. Now the Cask of the Submerged Isle is best in slot with Aegis on so many commanders, and on damage dealing commanders, it's best in slot with Determination. So I actually think the Cask is, I would almost wager that the Cask is the best item in the game with how many commanders you could run with Aegis, and even if you weren't on a damage commander, you would run Determination as like a game changer for those type of commanders. It's a very good weapon. Next up is the Black Bow. I want to say I've seen black bows on like Lurts, who I am not rating at meta, and I will not have that argument. I don't know. I think you could do some kind of weird stuff, but it's just like this is again not best in slot for anybody. Because if you had it, I mean it's only 3, by the way. It's not like it's a white knife with like 6. It's 3 attack. And the only thing I think I've heard of is like some kind of Urukai build on Lurts, which is just not. It's not. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. Bye-bye. Dustbin. Right there. Next up is going to be the Gigantic Hammer. Now, I'm not sure if this will rank higher than the Cask or not, and this is where we'd be splitting hairs. The Gigantic Hammer has a total of 6 army attack once it's fully strengthened. Not to mention army attack for large units up to 90, I think. I think it's 90. With very high might. And the ideal effects that I've seen have been Rend for more general use, and then on damage commander's Frenzy, or even, possibly not, like Sun End with Feint, which is what I have. I'm going to be running this. So stats are good. The fact that it can be run on so many commanders with the 6 attack, like, this was like one of the, we don't have very many that give us 6 army attack. So you had like the Elven White Knife, which is so situational and really just for those Elven commanders. But now to run this on Maiar and men and dwarves and evil men, I think it's a game changer. I don't know if it's higher than the helmet though. I really don't know. Maybe it's because I don't have the helmet, so it's like the forbidden fruit for me, so I want it. But either one of these, like, what do you guys think? Here's what I'm thinking. Do we move the Axe of Khazad-dûm down to A? Because I feel like, I know it's just like, this is for damage commanders, but like, my thought is compared to these two, this thing is not even close. If I ran damage commanders, like even on Dwalin, I would run the Frenzy here on this Gigantic Hammer, or other ones with Hunt Down. So my thought is, don't get me wrong, Axe of Khazad-dûm is great, but compared to these two, it kind of seems out of place as Balrog tier. So I less like it when you guys agree with me. It makes these lists much easier, you know that? Okay, next up is the Blazing Tongue. We're catching up here. CB, basically never used in combat from what I've seen. It's fodder. The Dustbin is fodder tier. C, because of its race limitations. B, it's easier to find since you can buy it at the end of the season. Renamed to Dustbin to fodder. They should hire. You know what? They could hire both of us, honey, and we can just come up with ideas and make this game better. So I have this on my Gandalf the White, my alt, for example, with Mind Split, and I do think it. First of all, his R10 is going to be like far and away best in slot, but before that, you'd probably just run a Noldor Sword. The only thing is, I think Noldor Sword is army attack for men and elves, so it's actually a little bit less restrictive than the Noldor Sword, which I think would be best in slot for your Galadriels, your Gandalf the Whites, those things. The issue with this is what was mentioned, exactly what you said, Sebastian. The race restrictions are kind of brutal. I would say it's a better one for Gandalf the White, based on the army attack being for any troops. It really opens that up. It's high might, and it's got smite, but it's for Maiar and undead. So I'm gonna put this one. Blazing Tongue is better than Noldor for Gandalf the White, but we can't call an item good for every one very specific niche use. Agreed. Because so the reason that that items would rank very highly is because they are best in slot on multiple commanders. It's like if you've got that, you're gonna use it. If you pull this, you'd have to have Gandalf the White. You'd have to have the right effect, and really the low damage. You need refinement. Now, long term, if someone was like starting out in season 1 and they wanted to run Gandalf the White, I might encourage them to say, hey, I might start buying these guys in the shop. First of all, I'd say, hey, if you're going to run Gandalf the White, are you going to get his R10 item? If you're not, if you're like, nope, I'm not doing tier 3 R10s, they're too expensive, I'd say, hey, every season try and get this. And if you get 3 or 4 refinement on Smite and you got this strengthened up, that's going to be awesome. But that's about it. It's not really like, oh, it's on several commanders, because you know, would it be good on Galadriel with Smite? Probably, no, not, it's not focused, but like you couldn't even use it. So is B tier good? Because I feel like Plate of the Citadel, or Belt of the Citadel, which also we talked about Gandalf the White, weirdly enough, is still, there are still other gold and even purple options that are better. So I would say B. We could put it in the top of C, but I'm kind of okay with B as like a, hey, check this one out before you do anything with it. Could there be a really good one on Gandalf the White where you're like, oh, that was pretty nuts? But I think I'm going to put it in the B tier for now. If we have others in the B or the B that bump it down, that's fine. Next up is going to be the Berserker's Gaze. At, again, same thing, but high refinement is, there's determination, no, not determination. Resolve of Urkai, it's 100% chance of stun immunity for the entire battle. And you add army attack for your Urkai. But again, this might be a quick like C tier type of thing. Obviously, Aegis is higher because it is used on so many. On Witch King, increased attack for the Urkai and stun immunity for the whole battle is very, very good. So I'm kind of thinking it's going to stay around the B tier, because it's like, yeah, if you happen to pull one stun immunity and you don't have Aegis, I would absolutely run this for the extra army attack. Like that's going to be, because then you got your weapon, you got your helmet, and your accessory. If you're running Palantir for 9 attack on your alchemists, you're going to see some pretty good use. Bought this on a Witch King with stun immune, and it was insane. He could rip through stacks. High B. Okay. Again, if Netherese was here, I think he'd also be saying, hey, I'm using this, and if anybody played against us or with us, I don't need to tell you that Witch King was nuts. So I think we do. I don't have a problem with that. It's the same thing. Like is it better, or could it be best in slot for Witch King? Absolutely, or considered best in slot. But in terms of who else it's useful on, it's that. So it's just like the Gandalf the White, the Blazing Tongue, where it's like, yeah, that could work on him. Yes, this works on Witch King, very good. But that's why it's in B. B is like, hey, there's one commander it's best in slot on. If you happen to be running them and you get lucky and get this, great. And these ones up here are like, I don't care if you have them, keep these items, or else you're going to be in trouble. That's the deal. All right, next up is the Night Star. Let's up over here. Night Star, I'm interested to hear, because I do think there's going to be a conversation about RP versus non-RP, and I'll just add that as a caveat on this item. But as you can see, it's not here in the evil chest. So, is this the only good item, the only good gold item that has Tactical Mark? I'd say it's an okay accessory on someone like Theoden for the Pursuit or the Opportune Strike effect. Oh yeah, there's Opportune Strike as well. Chance of causing max damage. I think it ranks better than the Berserker's Gaze or the Blazing Tongue. And I think if you're RP, you could probably make the argument that it's even higher. But would a solid A tier be agreeable for the Night Star? Admiral, you think low A, Mark, you as well? Okay. All right. I'm happy with that. Now, next up, we got the, what is this one? The Berserker's, not Berserker's Gaze. What is that armor piece called? What do you run on it? Fortitude of Urkai?
Concentration for alerts, just more might, but
so it's best in slot for alerts, who I would not consider in the meta. So does that rank it at like?
I mean, it would be good. I mean, it's a really high might piece for concentration. It's at base it's 54, and then it's another 60 by round 5. So it's the highest might armor in the game, but
right,
it just doesn't have anything else going for it.
Because like you could even make the argument for Witch King with the HP and like Fortitude of Urkai, the crazy high might, but I think you like the people like the Warborn Battle Plate better on Witch King because you get the army, the speed and the defense, the same effect. So I feel like this is one of those that like has potential, but not quite as much as other ones that are similar.
It was a good gear in season 1 when Lurtz was actually good. Now it's not anymore.
Can we, man, rip Lurtz? Can we get some? Can we get an update on him, please? He's having a rough go. So does that put him in like the top of the sea, or do we? I don't know if I'd rank it with these ones that I would actually run on commanders that are in the meta.
It's definitely at least a C.
I think there. Next up is the bone armor. Now, I'm thinking this is possibly considered best in slot for Gorbag, although I think I actually like the Tracker's Plate more now, and I just got this for the heavier defense. But I feel like on your Gorbag and your Gothmog with Fortitude of Orcs, probably what you're going to do. But I don't know if it ranks as highly since that's 2 commanders and there is a alternative that I think Orcs benefit from the higher defense more. What's the base defense for Orcs? 10. So it's got higher
30.
Higher defense in the base, and then you get it from the effect as well.
I like Tracker's Plate better, but they're both really good.
So does that put it in like, so for example, like Berserker's Gaze, and we talked about like one commander these guys are good with. Does that put it top of the B tier because it's 2, or does that bump it to A tier since it's got Gorbag and Gothmog?
I wasn't here for Berserker's Gaze. Berserker's Gaze has determination, so that's good on any.
Oh, you know what? You're not wrong. I was just thinking about the stun immunity that I've seen Netheries run.
Yeah.
That's a good point, actually, chat. So we talk about the same thing on the Aegis Helm, on the cask. This has the determination, which is, that effect is best in slot gold for damage dealing commanders. And it's the highest, isn't it the highest might helmet in the game?
Yeah, it is.
So other than the army attack for Uruk-hai, you don't benefit from that. But then again, it's not like you're getting that. You're not getting army attack from the cast system or style anyway. So I won't. I think that actually needs to be bumped with that in mind. Does that go to A, or do you think it goes? We kind of put like the axe of Khazad-dûm with cleave up in the A tier for damage commanders. But do you think determination is higher than that? I forgot about determination. I'm fine bumping that up. So we can either put Orc armor above the Blazing Tongue, since I think Orc armor is used on two Orc commanders. I think more commonly Gothmog or Gorbag from what I see. I think B is probably good. I think to get in the A tier, it's really got to be like covering an entire like determination is best for all damage link commanders. Not to mention this can have some different use on Witch King. So it's like that's fine. You got your tactical mark, your opportune strike here. You got your damage commanders here. So like these ones kind of like fit in an entire like type of commander, whereas these like are like 1 or 2 uses, if that makes sense. Next up is the Bow of the High Elves. I feel like I've seen this like on a Galadriel with like Mind Split. Is that right?
Yeah, some people put it on Galadriel with Mind Split. Some people put it on Gandalf the White. I don't like its stats. There's definitely better options.
Speed, army speed for range, might and focus.
Which its focus is low, which means it's not good for the commanders that have Mind Split. So it's just a really bad.
It's kind of like if you don't have anything else with Mind Split, you could put this on, but to me, that's not a best in slot. Is it bad enough that it's going in the dustbin?
It is. To me, it would be.
Yeah. It's got to have like an argument for best in slot on someone, and if it's still like, yeah, I'm fine with that. Next up is what Netheries calls the Box of Strengthening. My issue with this, I know there's a couple of effects people like. My issue is even at full refinement, it seems like you only get to half a 60% chance, almost half, or a little over half. Are there enough effects that are good that this deserves a higher ranking?
So you collect 10 of them, and then you can just switch them, so that's not an issue. But after that, I mean, some of the traits are really good, but it's just not a great option.
Because yeah, I mean, I don't see anybody like any whales running them.
They ran well, some people tried them when they came out, but yeah, they switched off. Like they ran.
Which are the ones that are ideal?
Well, the warrior one is pretty good actually for like damage dealing commanders.
Defense ignore and damage dealt increase by 9%.
But obviously it's just a 60% chance, so most people aren't going to use it.
Yeah.
And for that much refinement, it's not. I don't think it's. I don't know. It might be desperate.
That's what I'm thinking. And I'm trying not to, since we're talking about gold gear, I'm trying not to rank stuff based too much on cost to refine, because we're talking about gold gear already. So I think that should be pretty evident that it's like, yes, this stuff's. However, if there's no one off the top of our heads that we're going, oh, this is absolutely best in slot. Because if I could have a full refined box of knowledge, you know, on like a damage dealing commander, and that was best in slot, then maybe it'd go up here. But I see people running Erebor's Pride with Iron Guard, or can we use on Shadow or Sauron with what is that?
It's focus damage.
Focus damage plus 9%. Against one random target, 80% focus damage modified by focus. But is that going to beat out some of your gold options or whatnot for a Sauron or a Shadow?
On a Sauron, it's definitely not worth losing the 45,000 healing from a sustain type or the whatever you have for the gold type.
And for me, I'm thinking Shadow's not meta, so that's why I feel about Shadow. I'd say B for box, does well for Galadriel and damage link commanders. And you guys are loving the box. I don't know. We're at a little bit of an impasse here, chat. Again, so here's the. What gear would you say are better? What I see is the Erebor's Pride for damage link commanders for accessory. There really are no evil damage link commanders that I would run, so I would just be running Erebor's Pride on the good ones, which to me makes that best in slot. I don't know if there are other ones that you can think of.
Whatever.
Oh yeah, the Calabash with Gift of Nature, statistically very, very good. So that's what I would probably consider off the top of my head. The issue that I have with the box of knowledge is if you don't have something else, you have this laying around, it's like, oh, this is good, but for it to be good and have that even 60% chance, you need full refinement. And if you have a fully refined box of knowledge, I guarantee you have gone through some other best in slot options. So I might put it in C just to be generous, because I don't know, like, does it seem way better than like a Chieftain's Gaze or a Black Bow? Maybe there's some use. Maybe it's bottom of C, but I don't know. Yeah, Evil needs some help with the damage commanders. You're not wrong on that. You are not wrong on that. I'm going to put it here. Could you run it fully refined on certain commanders? Maybe, but I think there's better options. And the whole conversation is it best in slot? And if it is, for how many? And if it's best in slot for a lot of commanders, then it goes up higher. This is like, could be used, but not really. You know what? No, I'm going with the gut here. I'm sorry. We're going with Dustbin, chat. I got to do it. If someone asked for my honest advice and they had one, I would suggest them to get rid of it. And if you've got use out of it, great. But I think there are a lot of better options. That's all. All right. Next up is the Cask of Pride, which is...
We're going to see a lot of refinement on this soon.
Yeah, so they're adding this to the Battle Pass, or the whatever it's called, the Season Pass. High Might, and...
It's a really good piece. Just stats wise, for either like Fortitude of Soldiers or melee suppression, mainly just to like on a Dwalin, just to kill Witch Kings, really. But I don't know if it's quite Balrog. It's probably A.
Yeah. It's not a bad piece, and with it being heavily available for good refinement on one of the effects. Now, if it had determination, oof, look out. Melee suppression, fire chest, completely nukes Witch King. Yeah, again, that doesn't make it Balrog tier for me. That's why, like, some of these other ones that have like one really good use are in like B or A. Balrog is, if you get this item, you should be freaking out because it's best on so many commanders and keep it, kind of a thing. I think A is good I don't know where it would rank among the other ones. I think it's got more use than like the Berserker's Gaze. I could see there. Next up, this one's probably going to be Balrog tier. The Call of the Forest. Right?
So you see Radagast.
Uh-huh.
I saw a build where this is still not his best item,
Oh, God.
and it was made for him. So I think it's going in the dustbin.
Yeah, if you've got an item that's absolutely made for you, and you're still not... Yeah, that's kind of brutal. Oh, I didn't realize they had... It's like, I didn't realize they had like an Aegis effect for beasts. Woodland protection. The more you know. Yep. Dustbin. Another one that's probably going to go there is the Cruel Hooks.
Okay, these have a very, very limited use. We saw some...
It's the Berserker one, right? With like the crazy attack for Berserkers.
Either you get the retaliate, and that's one of the gears that makes, again, Lurtz or a Saruman somewhat useful.
Right. Because it's 9 attack for Berserkers, right? And then with retaliate on a commander like Lurtz or Saruman, who has a when damage is dealt, they heal, I believe, or whatever.
Like with lethal weapon, it's really not bad for like a Lurtz again, but these commanders just aren't in the meta.
Right. So for the super niche ones, I think we're dropping them in C because it's like I think it's something that's worth looking at. Like if you have it, you could look and go, okay, it's super niche for these. I'm not doing that, and then you get rid of it. But in the off chance you are, you could go, I actually happen to pull this commander or got this one. Again, for me, I just pulled Saruman a couple weeks ago. At that point my only tier 3 evil full pull. So if that's you and that's like I only have Saruman, maybe, and you get this, you go, hey, that works out. I can get something going here with what I've got. But for everything else I have, I wouldn't run it. But if that was like all I had, I'd probably consider looking at it. But since it's got niche use that I think does make it best in slot for those, we'll put it at the bottom of C. But that's a very caveated, like, don't really consider it. Next up, the Defender of the Mountain. I feel like if it was might, it could actually be a solid item for your damage dealing commanders, like a lot of your dwarves.
So it's like only useful somewhat for Balin. Like if you have like an Iron Guard retaliate thing, he just healing even more.
Yeah.
But it's probably Dustbin.
Yeah. This is probably another Dustbin. It's like some of these, and this might be the same as the Cruel Hooks, where like these could probably be Dustbin, but we're like, I guess just making the statement that like if you're running a retaliate, honestly, both of these actually are, we've talked about retaliate builds being potential use for them. So I'm tempted to leave them here just so if like I would take a look before you get rid of it, be like, oh, I actually happen to be running a retaliate Balin, great. But usually if you're running retaliate Balin, you know what you're doing a little bit, and I would consider it. So I think they could either both be Dustbin because I think they're similar, or it could sit at the bottom of this as the same thing of like, yeah, it's good on one commander, a niche build for one commander. But then again, I don't really consider those ones, I guess outside of their niche builds, I don't consider those guys meta. And I don't even know if a retaliate like Lurtz or Saruman would be meta, or if that just gets them like playable. But I've never seen a Cruel Hooks used in game. I don't know. I'm feeling generous at this very moment. We're gonna leave them right there. Anyway, drums. The drums of Baradur is pretty good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good piece.
My knee jerk would be A tier with the army attack. There's a couple of different uses. Like it's got Might of Soldiers that I see. I think even like the Grunge of Gundabad is pretty good on orcs. 6 more attack for orcs. They lose 36 defense, but I guess the idea is you'd offset that with the Tracker's Plate, right?
Yeah, or Gothmog. I think just
True.
It's like 30-35. Like I think it's best in slot for Gothmog at that if you're using for PvP.
Right. I wonder, I know Gorbag doesn't have it in his kit, but if he's got your you've got your R10 for Gorbag with the defense modified by focus for with the tracker's plate. I mean, 6 more attacks a lot to throw on someone who's dealing out so much damage with Oryx. And then otherwise,
Actually,
like I've seen it on like Caldoons, just with the army attack from melee.
It also has the army attack, so it's a lot of attack.
Oh, it has, yeah, so it's 9 more. Iron Guard, it's got Might of Soldiers. So drums, I'm thinking, do you think the drums rank higher than anything else in the A tier? I feel like it could honestly be there, below the cleave axe. Next up is the Durin's plate, which I think is best in slot.
Highest might on good side.
Highest might, and it's got dominance, right? For even more might with your.
Well, I think that has to be. I think that has to be included now.
HP for dwarves, army attack for dwarves. I mean, it's I feel like you'd have a hard, other than like if you're looking at burn protection, but I feel like you'd have a hard time not running this on dwarven commanders with the fact that they usually run dwarves, because they're even for damage commanders, they're the efficient like tanky troops. And if you're running someone that is running them legitimately, then I think this is a great piece. So, and tactical maneuvers, yeah, you could do that as well. Does that put it in A as well? I mean, if it's highest might good item,
it's probably an A. It's definitely better than those other gear, but just the way it's situated with just might and dwarves, I mean, it doesn't have a lot of use outside of those attack commanders.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I don't personally like defense stats for dwarves because their defense is already so high. I'd rather it be HP or something else. But or no, it's not defense. Never mind. It's HP and attack. Never mind. I'm confused.
You need caffeine.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently so. So, would it rank higher than anything else in this tier? I feel like.
So it's definitely better than the Night Star, because the Night Star is just there for the traits.
Yep.
It's probably better than the Cask of Pride.
Right there. Highest might, army attack, and HP.
Yeah, that's right there.
Again, like I say a lot, and I repeat myself a lot because people jump in and out, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, why is this higher than this? Like, this is way better." If it's way up here in the A's and whatever, it's a good item, and you should put some thought into how you're going to use it. And if you're not, make sure you've maybe consulted someone just before you get rid of a good piece. So anything up here, I wouldn't worry too much about the order, but I think it is clear on some where it's like, no, this is what I would, if you were choosing between them. But these are good items. These down here are bad items, or specifically Dustbin is bad items. These are really situational. So don't get hung up on the order because it's not too important in my opinion. But there is an order because I think it's relevant, but not something that's like the end of the world of Ringslore. Okay, moving on. We have the Easterling Helm. The Easterling Helm is, I think, with the right effects, can be best in slot for all of the Evil Men commanders, and there's quite a few of them, if I'm not mistaken. Because you want either Resolve of Evil Men or Fortitude of Evil Men, I believe, and your Caldoons, your Kirin, Black Serpent, I believe, Army Defense for Evil Men. But if it's with as many of them as there are, I'm thinking this bumps this to A. Really, it's not even just Evil Men commanders, it's just commanders that use Evil Men. I do think there's like on a Sauron, you want higher focus. That's why it's not run on him specifically, but he runs Evil Men. They're a good troop type, so it's more like people that run these troops benefit really, really well from this item here. I'm putting the Easterling Helm for Evil Men. Maybe it's sitting somewhere around here in the A tier. Again, I feel like as we move on with the tier list and these areas fill up, I get less and less picky about how many go in each area. Elven Cloak. The Elven Cloak I see on, let's see, the Elven Cloak I see on really high focus commanders. I've seen them with Unity, with Sauron, with Galadriel, with I think those are the main two I've seen. Gandalf the White, I think, as well. There's also a resistance effect, which I have seen as well. But it's a statistically solid with the focus, HP, and then
It has resistance and general army stats. It goes up high.
Yeah. Fortitude of Elves, Hazard Training. Honestly, I don't think there's actually a bad effect on this thing. I think some are better than others, but like Defense for Elves isn't bad. Hazard Training is good effect. Fortitude of Elves is good if you're using Elven Commander. Although you wouldn't really use this on commanders that would run specifically Elf troops, but still. Mark, you think A?
Yeah,
Prince, you're saying top of B. I think it's A. I think this is. I think since
it's higher than a lot of things in A. Actually,
Yeah.
Because it's a general piece that we used across.
Since there's so many effects and it's good focus, I feel like any commanders benefit from focus. This could be a consideration if you have it. Does that put it just below the? Are we saying the cleave axe is still at the top since that's the best weapon for every damage dealing commander? This isn't necessarily the best armor piece for every focus commander.
I'd say it's probably right because I don't think it's best in slot for nearly anyone, but it's just one of those things that's just really good on everyone. So
yeah, that's exactly what Mark said as well. Maybe not best for anyone, but it's really good on a lot. And so I know we're looking at best in slot use, but again, this would be one of those things that if you're a brand new player, if we put this in the dustbin and people start getting rid of them, I would feel bad because I feel like that's not what you want to do. So we're going to put it up there. I like that. Next up is the Elven White Knife. Put it in the dustbin and move on, am I right? So the Elven White Knife, those of you who don't know, that's not it. The Elven White Knife is 6 army attack for elves and might, and it has a stat, Might of Elves. That's very, very good.
yeah,
I don't think it's for Gil only. I think you could run it on Haldir, any Elven commander, like Elven troop buffing commander. So I think it's a couple. Obviously, what you'd see the best use off is a Gil, but I think Haldir's a solid tier 1 Elven commander who buffs Elven troops. So if I was running Haldir and not Gil and I had this, I would run this on Haldir.
I think it's a B. Yes, it's his best weapon.
Yeah, it's absolutely best for Gil and Haldir. The 6 army attack.
It has a decent might. I've even seen it run on like a Theoden with bow knights, like heavy bow knights. I've seen that run. But since it is a best in slot item, I don't think it ever goes down to C, but I think it stays like top of B maybe.
Well, because again, we were talking about like the Blazing Tongue as being a best in slot for Gandalf the White with Mind Split at full refinement, and that's sitting there at the bottom of here. And then the Bone Armor, we're like, okay, it's one of the 2 best in slots for 2 orc commanders. This is the best in slot for every commander using Elven troops, and like far and away, like I think with the red effect is Gil is a very meta commander. It's very good.
So yeah, so B for best in slot, but not good for anything else.
Yeah. And that's why the Gigantic Hammer is so much higher, because it can use on so many. It's the same army attack, but it can be used on so many more things, and there's effects that aren't so limited to elves. But it's best in slot. It's not quite A. You get to more like general use. Like you can look at a lot of commander options, but it's better than these. It's way better than the C tier. So I think that's where we go. That's where we go. We have the Ent Calabash, which we talked about as a potential best in slot accessory for damage dealing commanders with the stats, the might army HP.
Best in slot for King of Men. Best in slot for. I don't think it's quite best in slot for Dane, but it's really good for all the dwarves. Other than that, it really doesn't have a ton of use, but for damage dealing commanders, it is, if not the best, it's second best.
Okay. So in that case, since again we're talking about an entire type of troop, the damage commanders, and there's like a few other King of Men, or there are different things. Does that mean it goes like below the Cleave Battle Axe or the Axe Khazad-dûm, because it's very close to or best in slot for that? Because I think You could also go Hammer of Moria with lethal weapon. So I think there's going to be 2 suggested best in slot weapon and accessories for an entire type of commander. I feel like that means they're going to be in the A of like, yeah, if you're running Wallen, Gimli, Dane, Legolas, Aragorn.
I think it might be lower because I'm just thinking through the accessories. Like when we get to a fiddle has more general use.
True.
And still use small damage commanders. So something like that it would definitely be higher. So it might be down because you're thinking like, okay, the white knife's only good for elves. Well, those are only good for damage commanders, which there's dwarves and 2-man commanders, I guess.
Right.
I don't know, it's a good piece.
What do we throw it in the middle of the bunch? I'm thinking around the Cask of Pride, either above or below. We'll throw it there. Again, like I've said 19 million times, and I'll say probably 19 million more. I think the order is a little bit less important as we get up here. Honestly, if you have a B or higher, you should be thoughtful about whether or not you're keeping those gear pieces. If it's down here, you're probably safe. Dustbin, you're definitely safe. C is like absolute. Really, we should, you know. I'm changing C to niche use, maybe even super niche use, but niche use, and then B is best in slot. We're gonna say best in slot for 1 or 2. I mean, I know you could say that it's best in slot with the white knife for every Elven commander, which is true, and there's several, but then I don't consider Elrond as a part of the meta, so we're really focusing on like best in slot for commanders that are useful to use. But it's at the top of the pack. Next up is we have the Erebor's Pride. Again, these are in no particular order if you're trying to follow along. I went through the chest and took a picture of each of them and then threw them all in here, and I don't know if they stayed in effect, but we're just doing them in the order like that. Next up is the Erebor's Pride, which I don't know if based on our conversation we put it just like next to the Calabash, because we basically put the Calabash there.
Higher.
You think higher?
Because it has general use for dwarves, HP, and also has the
Arid Lurin, yep.
Yeah, which is really good for like a Thorn or someone that's not quite the full damage commander, but it has other use besides.
So there, or does it get higher than the Durin's Plate as well, or do we keep those 2 together and just say the Erebor's Pride is better?
Yeah, they're probably right beside each other. I mean, you're not going to use anyone besides a dwarf anyways. You're going to use it with the Durin's Plate if you're going to use it anyways. So
right, okay, no problems there. Next up, Explorer's Outfit, Dustbin.
So you see on a Gandalf the White with like some
might focus army HP for men and hobbits. If you run a men build with Gandalf the White,
you're in season 6 and you have Shire Protectors. You see, it's only mostly bad.
Like if you had mindfulness on Gandalf the White, who has decent speed, and you get focus, increased focus. I know don't use that.
Don't use that gear.
It's kind of funny that like you can think through who it would work on just based on it, but it would be like, you just don't do it. All right, moving on. Fiddle of the Eldest. I think this is going to be pretty high up in the A, just off the top of my head. It got focus and speed, army defense and speed. And
personally, that doesn't have a bad use. It has good traits besides like March Haste. Second wind's like whatever, but
Blitz is a really good effect that can. I mean, I see anybody that can run Blitz on like crazy wieldings. I feel like people start running Blitz fiddles on a lot of different commanders, or just or you look at the ring of or Signet of the Barrows with Blitz on some of the ones who can't run this one. But Might of Soldier, second win, yeah. You need to get Landon his heroism fiddle, and then he'll be happy. What do you guys think? Thoughts on the fiddle? I wouldn't I feel like if I look through the walkthrough at a lot of different commanders, I see the fiddle pop up a lot with either I think I'd prefer other ones on damage commanders, but still like it's an option. Blitz is just a very good effect. Going first, the commander and the units in the first 4 rounds. Kind of nuts. And that anybody that could use this would benefit pretty highly from the... I mean, whether it's the commander or your troops, or if you're a hybrid commander and you get both, I think it's very good. So, I wouldn't be opposed to putting it up in the Balrog tier, just in the 3rd slot right there. And we'll see what else we get in there. If we want to bump it down, we can, but it's a good piece. Moving on. Next one. Fine Smoking Pipe. Now, this one's interesting because I feel like it gets healing-wise outclassed by the Purple Pipe, as we did testing and saw. There are some other effects, but...
It's got HP going for it. Other than that...
HP and focus.
It has higher focus. It's not bad. It's not great.
Yeah. So is it a niche use? Like, you probably, is it, I don't think I would say it's best in slot. So does that then go to the niche, like, to be put at the top of the niche tier of, like, it's high focus, it's HP, certain effects you're going to see use from, and I see people running them, but
yeah, like, I don't know. I hate to make it look like it's bad. It's really not bad. It's just Purple Pipe, for what it does, has more healing, which for all the focus commanders, you generally just want that.
Yeah.
It has HP, which is really good. But
Fine Smoking Pipe for Gladriel.
I would Gladriel, no way. You're still putting on Purple Pipe.
Yeah. We did a lot of the testing on the healing compared purple to gold, and it was just not really a question that a fully refined purple was doing better than the gold one. So to me, if someone was walking through their account and they had a bunch of gear and they had a purple pipe and a gold one, I would say use the purple, because it's not only better for the healing and very competitive with everything else, and then I would put those items into something else that actually is best in slot, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put it in niche, because I'm not going to put it in dustbin. Niche should be like double check before you get rid of it, but use if you're a whale. Even so, if you're a whale, like, there's still going to be better options for you, I think. These are all kind of like, it's a gold tier list, so I think it's, if you're a whale and you're like wanting to get stuff sorted out, that's one thing, but it's also like long term. Like, if you were to watch this as your first video playing the game, like, it's like, I started playing today, I'm watching this, if I'll cut it up into a video, and that helps people long term not get rid of good gear. That's kind of the goal. But we'll say niche. We'll just put it in like the, yeah, okay. Golden Skin. Is the golden skin is dustbin, right?
I don't personally like it. Some people have like a niche use for like the contemplate, or like a focus Sauron, because then you get 60 by round 5, or might, either one.
Yeah. Concentration, contemplation could be interesting. I want to say I've seen them on like Gandalf the Whites, maybe with the Fortitude of Cav. It seems very situational. So does that go in the niche category then?
I don't know. There's Mark's in chat. There's definitely better uses for Gandalf the White. Much better piece of gear for him.
Mark, you do use it on your Gandalf the White and you like it with concentration, I assume?
Probably Fortitude of Cav, I would assume, if he's using him.
Oh, true.
But yeah, it's probably niche use, and yeah, with looking at those other gear pieces, that's probably where it's at.
Yeah, because again, if you could pick any gear, it's the best in slot conversation. I don't think I would pick this as a first choice if I had any gear and any effects. But is there use? Yes? Is it bad? In those uses, no. So I think that's where the niche use comes in, and I'm going to put it here. I think, as again, don't get rid of, probably don't get rid of. Look at before you get rid of, and sleep easy. That's the actual names of these tiers. So next up is the Great Plate of the East. I previously thought this was best in slot.
Right where you put it.
You think so?
Yeah.
I thought I have it on Sauron with tactical maneuvers, and I think the only thing I'd want more now would be a protection of Numenor with the Eastern Resolve. But focus, HP for evil men, and up to 60% or hazard training is what the effect. And fortitude of evil men wouldn't be bad. Honestly, a couple of them could be solid. So I think it's like could be best on a couple. Maybe there's a different effect on a certain piece that outclasses it, but I think it's. I was very excited when I pulled mine for my Sauron because I think it's one of the best options you can have on him. Yeah, so right there. What about above Blazing Tongue? I think it's better.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
I think
I really don't like Blazing Tongue.
Yeah, and honestly, Blazing Tongue probably could just be a niche use as well, because that's kind of what we started categorizing all these as. It's like there's one commander you could use them on. I mean, I'd almost make the argument that it is best in slot for Gandalf the White, but I feel like there's some that are close enough that I'm like, it's not like a.
If you're talking best in slot, you're getting a unique, so.
Best in slot, ignoring the unique on it. What else would you go with over the Blazing Tongue?
What is Blazing Tongue? Just might and army attack?
Army attack and might, and then you'd go with Mind Split, or Might of Evil Men is an option, but I'd Mind Split,
Well,
I think.
at that point, your Noldor Sword has still got Mind Split. It's still got Focus. It's got Might. It's got.
But
Army
it's
attack for
restricted to
elves
men and elves, though.
That's all you're going to use on Gandalf the White 90% of the time.
What about, I thought Reaper Alchemist Gandalf the White was next level, too.
That is next level, but
it may be niche. I'm not arguing for it. I mean, I have one. I want it to be better, but I just, this niche might be a better spot for that. As again, take a second look to see if you've got exactly what you would need to run this well. Otherwise, it's probably not one worth. We also bumped it as slightly higher because it's in the end of season shop, and you could get high refinement potentially faster than an older sword.
I do like the fact that you can refine it fairly easily if you're winning seasons. Like by now, if someone would have bought them, they could have had like 3 refinement on it.
Yeah. I think I want to go there. Okay, Grey Wizard hat with Tranquility. I'm putting it up there for now, but I want to see what everyone thinks. I don't think I shouldn't have said with Tranquility. Just Grey Wizard hat in general, because we're not looking at gear.
With Tranquility. No, just with Tranquility.
That's all I consider it as.
It's best in slot for Gandalf the White, Gandalf the Grey. Could be best in slot for Sauron.
Galadriel.
Best in slot for Galadriel. If you're doing focus damage, it's probably your best in slot.
Mouth of Sauron. Best in slot Mouth of Sauron. Dang.
Probably Ancient Numenorean Helm is probably better, but either way, it's still really good.
True.
Usable.
So, are there enough there that bumps us to A, or is that still like hanging on in like the Acts of Khazad-dûm category where it's still a focus type? It's the best helmet for that type.
Sounds like it's good for a lot of different commanders.
It is good for a lot of different commanders, but they are very limited to focus. It's not something you're going to put on a different commander if you have it.
Well, and I mean, we got to compare to the other ones up here. We got the cask, Martile, the Gigantic Hammer, Fiddle the Eldest. I think the uses that these have, kind of in that order of usefulness. For me, that the first two are
universal.
Yeah, the first two are definitely like anybody could wear those. The Fiddle still pretty high, maybe not quite as much as those two, and then I think that the hat drops down a little bit more. So does that put it here? Probably. Or are we saying back of the line here? Which again, we're doing the hair splitting, but for those curious how they rank out.
It's good either way. Just keep the item.
Mm-hmm. All right, just because there's more in the A list, I'm putting it right here. But that's kind of the only reason. But it's back of the line there. All right. Next up is the Hammer of Moria with ideally lethal weapon. I'm just going to put it here. We'll try and rapid fire some of these because we have I feel like 30 left. The Hammer of Moria with lethal weapon is I think considered one of the 2 best in slots for the damage commanders, same as the Cleave Axe of Khazad-dûm. So I think that's fine there. Next up is the Harad Cask. I don't think I've ever seen this run. I know it's a little bit newer. So
it's the opposite of the Easterling Helm. I think it just has more. I mean, it's the exact same traits. It's a really good piece of gear. It's just, I think one has more might, one has more focus.
Okay. Defense for evil men.
So that one has might. I think the Eastling Helm has more focus.
10 might, 6 focus. It's got it has 10, 6,
no, they're
and
not, they're
8.
Not the same. Wait,
And
the
this,
same?
they have the same stats. This has more defense. This is 10 and 4. This is
Less focus.
10
That
and
one
6.
has less focus.
Less focus, more defense. There's two less here, 2 more here. So
it's like basically the exact same as the Eastling Helm.
So I think we just put it in the same spot. Probably not worth splitting hairs on that. Where did I put it? Here it is. Put it right here. Oh, look at that. Look at our tier list just growing and growing. Next up is the High Elf Hauberk, which I think is your best in slot for all your Elven commanders. So do we just put it next to the White Knife?
Elves, it has resistance. Resistance is great, but it's basically only useful in elves, so probably right by the best in slot for 1 or 2.
Yeah. Yep. Same. I think it's the same thing as the White Knife in terms of that usefulness. We'll even put them right next to each other so they can be buddies. But we could put the High Elf Helmet right next to them too if you want. High Elf Helmet, which I personally prefer the Hunter's Guide, but I think there could be an argument for both. High Elf's, maybe it's not, I don't know. High Elf's Helm, you can have Fortitude of Archers, Fortitude of Elves, Resolve of Elves, which I know BSA ran for a while. The stun for all, everything. Army Defense for Elves, Might, Focus, and Speed. Compared to Attack and Aegis. So you'd stun for the entire battle or Aegis and for the first 4 rounds is I think what is kind of the conversation. And then you get higher attack from that. So
I like where it's at. It's in that best in slot for very few.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even quite best in slot, but it's a good piece. It's not like a terrible piece.
Yeah. And again, if you happen to get this, I think it's better for the elves and it's more specific. Whereas if you got the Hunter's Guide, which is actually up next. So I'm gonna put the Hunter's Guide here because it's limited to ranged.
Yeah.
That's my thought there. But if you happen to have both, and it's like, oh, I think it's easy to go, well, this is much better or has better use on guild than anybody else, whereas this can get some wider use. Put it on a green, you could put it on a stun eng, anybody you're running ranged with, I think it's good. So that's, I think, where we're going to rank both of those. I don't think the Hunter's Guide needs a lot of conversation. Obviously, those of you that don't know, it's army attack, 3 army attack for ranged, and big shock. You're looking for Aegis on it. So that is that. Then we have the Iron. Was it the Iron Basin? What is it? Yes, the Bassinet. Where is it? Oh yeah. Might, defense for dwarves. Is it a best in slot consideration for?
I don't even know if it is best in slot for. People use it a lot on dwarves, but I feel like there could be better options.
So here's on damage commanders. I still think the Cask of the Submerged Isle with Determination or Berserker's Gaze with Determination is better because you care about your commander more than you care about your troops getting stunned and those kind of things. But then maybe with like the hybrid, like your Thorin could get more use because it's got stuff for dwarves.
It's definitely not like a bad piece, but it's not best in slot, Landon. We'll show you best in slot once you get to the evil gear.
Yeah, if I had my choice between a Cask of the Submerged Isle, a Berserker's Gaze, both of those having Determination, and the Iron Bassinet, I would go with the other 2 mentioned first in a heartbeat. Determination is so. I think we put it in best. I'm gonna put it in like the best in slot. Consider like for it could be some use, not quite as like universally for damage commanders. The Lang. Am I wrong in saying the only use for this is retaliate?
Personally, just throw it in the dustbin.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard people say that it's like it's a until you have a white knife. It could be, I mean, no, there's no army attack.
There's no army attack. It's the white knife before the white knife was released, and now it's not. Just
even so, I'd still just go with the cutlass, or not cutlass, the Mirkwood bow.
Yeah, it's bad.
And the retaliate doesn't bring it up into any like super niche use, because I think there are better retaliate weapons anyway. Or do we put it at the very back of niche use?
I've not seen a single retaliate build that works with elves. I mean,
true. Yeah, that's fair. You need to think of the troop types. I have no problem putting in the dustbin. I don't see them ever. All right, Lorien belt. Can I put the Lorien belt also in the dustbin? Speed for ranged, which on your elves, on your Gale specifically, you don't want range. You don't want speed for them.
It's like your best in slot for Haldir, but other than that,
yeah. Is it best in slot? I guess just with Might of Elves, or yeah.
Here, it just speed and like Might of Elves. It is best in slot.
Because you wouldn't need the speed if you have his chest piece, but obviously we're not considering that.
No, speed scales.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yep.
More damage.
Yep.
They should run that. The Haldirs should run that. They're just bad Haldirs.
So best in slot for 1. What's it? Big giant breastplate. What's it called? Massive breastplate. That's close.
Massive.
Nothing, right? Dustbin.
I saw some like really weird niche use with significant protection where it makes your Reapers like higher defense than something else, so they're not targeted.
Can be used on a lot of stuff, and it's might, army defense, and large unit defense.
It's a 30 defense, 24 might. It's not like a bad stats in general, but there's definitely better options.
Yeah, I feel like anybody be using Reapers on, I don't see this matching up with other ones. I don't think. This could be like, again, I think we're getting a little bit carried away with like the niche use of like, here's like what, I think some things need to be put in the dustbin. Here, I'll wheel back.
Throw in the dustbin.
Look at him right here.
You executives say.
Again, if you got this and you want to run some kind of Reapers build for the defense, maybe. Thematically, Iron Hills.
Best in slot for 1. Exactly 1.
Being
maybe
Thorin.
Ballin and Thorin. So 2.
The 6. It's like the Elven White Knife for dwarves.
Yeah, it has retaliate, so that's
okay. I can live with that. Put it.
Yeah. Falcon, dude.
Oh, and Falcon 3. There we go.
Forget he exists.
Poor Falcon, not getting any representation. Maras Reigns. I think it's the best mounted accessory in the game, right?
Yeah, it's pretty.
That put it at the top of the A, or is that where you say it's Balrog because it's like that good as an accessory? Or is it like
it's really good as an accessory, but it's not like a general use item, so I'm not sure it's Balrog.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
I would never throw it away if you get one.
Yeah. Just ranked with the others, it maybe doesn't have as many uses because I personally on my main don't run any cavalry commanders. I did get one of these with the effect, so I will. Basically here, I guess I'll say this. I'll put it at the top of the A, and I'll say I pulled one of these with Fearless Cavalry, and so I'm gonna be working on it and running a cavalry commander because I got it. Like it's making me want to use it with how good it is. So but since it's limited to cav, same with like these where it's like limited to damage commanders. It's the best in slot for the weapon. This is best in slot mounted accessory. I think that's fair with how we've been doing it. Mirkwood. Okay, I gotta extend this more because we're filling up the bin so quickly.
I heard Merc, so throw it in the dustbin.
Yep. Mirkwood thorns in the bin. Right there.
Put it right by Radagast's other gear, where it's somehow they made gear for Radagast that's worse than every other gear.
We wanted Radagast to work. We made him specific gear, and it's still bad. So yeah, in the dustbin. No problem. Mithril coat. I feel like this one's.
Personally, I think it's Balrog. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
You use wherever, and it's got some good trait, or at least tactical maneuver.
Assuming you want the focus, everything else is good. So anybody that benefits from focus, and tactical maneuvers is a great effect in the defense, and it's available in the end of season shop. So if you've been getting this in season 1, you've got a really nice refined one. It's just a very universally good item, and I think it could make you could make an argument for it being best in slot. Like, I think it could be argued with on other ones for certain commanders, but I mean, honey, I know you run it on your Sauron.
I absolutely love it.
Like,
Law is running mine as well.
yeah.
And Law has options, so
Yeah, no, it's a with tactical maneuvers and the high focus and the army defense, it's a fantastic piece. Could you say others in this one could bump up better than like, one-on-one? Yes, but we're looking at like it's used on so many, and since it's so unforgiving with gear in this game, you really, I think, focusing on items that are universally useful is beneficial. So that's what we're gonna put up there. Morgul Blade. I guess we'll start putting these at the top of the list so people can see where the new ones are. I'm thinking Dustbin.
so it's one of those ones that if you don't have the other gear for Witch King, Cullis is still better somehow. It's possibly best in slot for like a shadow, for poison damage. It had Frenzy before Frenzy was cool.
Yeah. So if it's beat by a purple piece for the meta commander being Witching, that I would consider. I'm very reluctant to even like, I just, until I start seeing shadows, I'm gonna, I don't know.
Shadow's a whale commander. You have to have him high respect for him to be good, so that's why.
Right. So if in my mind, if it's beat out by a purple piece of gear, you should be putting your gold. You should be putting your gold into something else. I think that's pretty fair. Even it's not like it's like, oh, niche. It has. It's like, no, use the Cutlass with melee might and put your gold gear into other more useful items. Next up is the Nightfall. Is this only useful for the Retaliate as well?
Yeah, it's a Retaliate build that. I've seen exactly one build ever use it, and that's for non-roleplay Theoden. But
army speed for Archive Might speed. I mean, yeah, it's just the effect. I don't really, the stats don't jump out at me as like it being better than the other Retaliate weapons. Like if I wanted to really run Retaliate, I feel like I would just do a Reckoning.
You would.
The attack. So
it's bad.
Bad. All right. Dustbin, she goes. Next up is the Noldor Sword, which we talked about when we were talking about the Blazing Tongue. I like the Blazing Tongue because it's useful on more, but I think we were saying actual
Noldor
stat
Sword could be used on more, and stats are better. So,
hold on, little chest. So it's men and elves, but the actual base stats are better. And it's got different effects that also have potential, right? Or is it still just Mind Split you want?
If you don't have a white knife, I mean, Might of Elves, or Might of Soldiers, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It's good for...
Be runner up on those. What about Accelerate on Galadriel?
That's not bad. Those follow-ups are only for like the normal attack, which for Galadriel you're gonna gain a little. You're gonna gain some damage, but
I guess Mind Split would still probably be your better bet.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got no issues with it, like overall being ranked higher. Is that just higher than that as still being best in slot for 1 or 2, or is it bump up higher than some of the other ones here? No white knife. It's like if you don't have the white knife, you could run this. So I feel like it's gonna be further away from that. We'll put that there, and we'll do the Signet of the Barrows next and talk about it since it was brought up. In my mind, the Signet of the Barrows with Blitz, like I've seen it on Gorebag. I don't know who else, like at the whale level, would get use from it as much that can't use the fiddle. I don't feel like it's like up here with the fiddle. But let's pull it up here.
It was Usura in like a roleplay server. Some people used to use it on the Sunid, and then guild if you're not fighting guilds. But basically just to make sure it can kill a Witch King. If you have Blitz with Sunid, you have a good chance to kill a Witch King. But
yeah, army HP for Orcs and Evil Men, speed for Orcs and Evil Men, then it's gonna be Blitz. So it's not a bad. I think I that's where I'm thinking this probably lands in best in slot for 1 or 2. They just don't see it being used as universally as the fiddle. So I don't know where exactly that puts it. If it's like, we'll put it next to like bow and armor because of the orc use maybe, or around here. I don't know. So long story short, if that's your first gold gear you're going all in on, I would ask, do you have anything in the A tier or above that, because that's going to be more universally beneficial. So I think that's where I would put it. But again, if you have a commander that really benefits from its use and if they fall in this category, and that's what you got, I don't think you'd be disappointed with that. Next up is Obsidian Dagger.
It's pretty.
It's very pretty.
Very, very pretty.
Best in slot, King of the Dead and
King of the Dead, Galadriel, Sauron.
Okay.
Until you get the uniques, get off the white until you get the unique. Just for focus.
So that's more than 1 or 2. So does that? I think that bumps it to the A tier.
It's definitely A tier. It's the highest focus weapon in the game.
Okay. So what if we put it around the other weapons that were kind of like the highest of that for that type? Yep. Yeah, you're right, Rachel. Until his unique and Gandalf the White as well. So I think that's enough. It's more than just like, oh, it's like, you know. I think that's good. That's solid. That's solid. Next up is the Orcish Great Helm. Orcish Great Helm, I'm thinking is in the bin, right? It seems very bin-ish.
Is it? Oh, the Orcish, the little horn-looking thing.
Yeah, might, and then army defense for orcs and trolls, and the effects.
So,
who's got determination?
It does, but it doesn't have enough to. It's also not usable on any of the like dwarven commanders that you can actually use it determination on.
Right.
It's super limited. The stats aren't great. There's better options for all the orc commanders.
Right.
Probably does win.
Yeah. Could it be a runner-up for some of those guys? Yes. Is it worth investing in? No. Don't go crazy on your. Like if you were going to strengthen it until you got a better orc piece, you'd probably be okay. But I would never like suggest refining or putting other pieces that are like not also dustbin into it. If that makes sense. So that's where we're gonna put that. Next up is the Orthancs Devilry, not Delivery. It's the Orthancs Devilry. Niche Opportune Strike build, right?
Yeah, Opportune Strike.
And there's Tactical Mark.
Tactical Mark through 4.
You don't have a Palantir and you need Tactical Mark, that'll get you by. Otherwise, you're going to want Opportune Strike. And if you don't hit Gills and you have Opportune Strike and Alchemist, you're going to nuke some stuff. But people are building so many things to counter Witch Kings that might struggle. So yeah, niche use. It's a nice spiky ball, so I'm going to put it here. Spiky ball goes there, niche use. Next up is the Palantir. I'm putting the Palantir in the Balrog tier.
Balrog.
Can't stop me.
Yep, higher in fiddle.
That's
it's general attack. I'd put it higher than a lot of things.
So here,
be used on across almost all the commanders. I'd almost put that one above everything.
It's got army attack for everything, 3 of it. It's got high focus. It has some might, and the big effect is Tactical Mark. First 3 rounds, they all gain pursuit, they ignore evasion, and a small chance of causing max damage. Fully refined, this will proc and really help out Witch King, for example. There are some secondary effects that aren't too bad, like Might of Soldiers, but this is the big one. But it's the accessory with army attack for everything that makes it so general use. I have 2 fully strengthened, and if I pull another one, I'd be like, great, time to start working on a 3rd. It's very, very good.
It has attack. I think that puts it above everything.
Yeah, I think top of Balrog tier.
Yeah, and it could be used across.
Some of them are still a bit situational, but like if your commander can use this, I think it could be in the consideration for any commander if it's usable by it. Whereas some of these, it's like, there might be a little bit different best in slot, or oh, this might, this is where it's like, meh, army attack and the accessory is really good, I think. Next up, Plate of the Citadel. I'm thinking best in slot for 1 and 2 because I see this on Gandalf the White. Is there anybody else that benefits from this one?
Yeah, it's basically Gandalf White, Arwen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1 or 2.
Might, focus, defense for men. So you got to be running men, and you got to benefit from might and focus. Then I'm assuming it's
better options for Galadriel.
fortitude of men as well. Would be probably what you do run on a Gandalf the Grey or Gandalf the White.
Yeah, or tactical retreat is one that's very interesting because that makes him kind of Reaper immune-ish.
Yeah, nice. Reapers are nasty. All right, best in slot for 1 and 2. No problems there. Next up is the Protection of Numenor, which I think is a crazy piece with Eastern Resolve. But does it jump higher than best in slot for 1 and 2? Are there enough commanders that benefit from it, or is it still just going to sit at the top of the A tier or close to that?
It has evil men HP as well.
Let's pull it up. I think there's another one Landon got like 19 of. Focus and army HP for undead and evil men, and it's yeah.
So it's
2.
6. It's 6. It's higher focus than the Great Plate. It has Eastern Resolve, which is focus for undead. It's definitely higher than.
And I would even make the argument that any evil men commander that could have higher alert on a effect is kind of game changing. I think.
Yeah, you put the Eastern things on A, so it's definitely an A.
Okay, and I think I'm gonna put it. I think that effect's pretty nasty. I mean, you can put it next to this because it has a resistance effect as well. But I feel like it's so unique for evil. That's why I think it's so interesting. Is that if I actually was to get this one day and run it on Sauron, geez, man, that'd be just, yeah, that'd be nuts. Ranger's Shroud. I'm thinking that's gonna be somewhere in the A tier. Again, I feel like it's one of the only army attack increasing armor pieces, right? Does anything else increase army attack for armor? So a very unique piece with the army attack. I think best in slot for Sun-End. I don't know if I'd say it's best in slot for like all range, because I do feel like someone like a Gil, people start looking to balance out like the defense a bit more. I personally have run this on Gil and I liked it. And if I had resistance, I probably would still have kept pushing this, but I never got resistance and kind of shuffled it around. A Ranger Shroud, I would definitely say best in slot for 1 and 2. I'm wondering if the uniqueness of it being an attack armor piece for really high DPS ranged builds, if that bumps it into the A tier.
It has resistance. I think it goes with the other armors.
All right. Resistance armor. I like it. Reach of the Riddermark. Best in slot for mounted commanders.
Yeah.
Including Gandalf the White, who I think it could use it, but probably benefits more from the focus stuff. But I don't know if we start just grouping together like weapons are here, the armor pieces are here. But
it could be in the 1 or 2, honestly.
Okay. Maybe throw it right next to the White Knife then, with you're on a Theoden or Eowyn or Eomer, but even Eomer I'd consider other options. So really it'd be like, and I wouldn't run Eowyn if I had Theoden. So we're gonna put it right there. Reckoning. Is that the same best in slot for 1 and 2? Well, it might be for more. It requires such a refinement to beat the Cutlass though, but
it does require refinement to beat the Cutlass, but it's got pretty good base stats as well.
So does that bump it? Is it enough? Just with a general attack and general stat boost, does that bump it into the A, or is it still just at the top?
Meh.
All right, I'm leaving it in the top of the best in slot for 1. Put it here. Sandclaw with Rend. Or not Rend. I don't know why I keep like saying an effect that I just like am thinking of in my head, but ignore me. So best in slot 1 or 2. Maybe previously it had better use, but it probably gets outclassed by the new items.
Like it was best in slot for like anything from a Song, Evil Men. Every Evil Men commander was the best.
Right.
Now that the gigantic hammer's there, it's knocked down a little bit, but it's still really good.
Okay. So we're gonna put it there. We're kind of starting to group like things like the weapons. You can see Silver Harp of Rivendell. I'm thinking probably right here to be, or maybe it's a little bit higher, but like I think best in slot for Gil. Spear of Udin. I'm going in the dustbin without consideration. And there's some decent pieces left here, so we're gonna rapid fire these. Swan Helm. Seen on Gandalf the White. His use. Is there anybody else that would bring it out of the
White, Galadriel, Arwen.
Was this someone using it on Gil or no? Am I losing my mind?
They shouldn't be. It's just men.
So it's more men commanders. Is there enough men commanders to put it with our helmets in the A tier?
Probably. It's not bad. It's got focus. It's got. I think this got like men's immunity.
Yeah. We're gonna put that in the A tier. That's fine. Black Mace. I feel like there's the only. I think it's probably 1 and 2 because I think I've seen like Gorebag with the.
Yeah, like a Gorebag with Panic or a Gothmog. It's good on those 2 orc commanders. Other than that.
Yeah. Should be best in slot on Witch King. It's not, which means it. We should punish it for that. Tracker's Plate. I'm gonna put the Tracker's Plate, I think, above the Bone Armor as a better. Me personally liking it better than Bone Armor for our best in slot like Orc use, but that's just for the little bit higher defense versus the Orc Armor. So that's the best in slot for 1 or 2. So 2 more, then we'll do Dawn. Orcish or. What is it? No, Warhelm. It's the Warhelm. Probably best in slot for 1 or 2 for the Orc Commander. Same thing, right?
It is best in slot for just the 1 or 2, but it has Discord. It has Stun Immunity. You put the other ones up there for like the Evil Men and the Focus Commanders that just have the Stun Immunity.
Right.
It's if you're judging off that, it's up there with those other ones in the A.
Okay, I'm fine with that because again, like yeah, it's best in slot for them, but that doesn't mean other commanders couldn't run certain builds that benefit from it just for the stat. So I think it's a good. I'm fine with that being a little bit higher based on how we ranked everything else with those like kind of powerful effects, if you will. Warborn Battle Plate. Is it beyond 1 or 2?
A very good general piece. Doesn't have resistance, unfortunately, but it's very good in general, so it's probably A.
Okay.
It's not up there with those good old resistance pieces, but.
So this is where we're at. I'm going to try and add the Dawn and see if it doesn't break it. But this is where we're at as a final without the Dawn. I mean, would you run the Dawn on anybody else besides like I've seen it on like Aragorn King of Men, but that's kind of it.
Would I actually run it? No. But
is it would it be best in slot for King of Men, or is that still just like it could work?
No.
Okay.
Cleave's better.
So I think it's dust. I don't even think it's niched where it's like, oh, it's not like in a niche situation best. It's just not best in slot. So Dawn's going in the dustbin. I'm glad we got that though, because if I forgot it, I probably would have never heard the end of it. That is going to do it for our gold gear tier list video. Again, huge shout out to everyone who helped in the chat as well as in our streaming studio to get this thing sorted out. As you can see, quite a lot of gear pieces here. I will say also one that was left off on accident was the Ancient Numenorian Helm. It is up there in the Balrog tier next to the Grey Wizard hat. And in this final version, I have sorted things just by the type, weapon, helmet, armor, accessory. So it's kind of clear when you're looking for things that if they're not, in the actual grouping you're looking for, then they're not going to be in that tier. If you really want to dive into the specifics about it, again, I just suggest making sure you go back to the point where we talked about each specific item. I do think in terms of the tiers, if it's in the same tier, if they're in Balrog tier, I wouldn't necessarily be looking at the Gigantic Hammer compared to the Palantir, for example. They're both Balrog tier and they're different types, so it's hard to rank different types. So I think having them separated by the actual type makes it a little bit more clear on this. So I did that for the final version, which again, this is linked down below. Lots of information in the description down below, so make sure you check that out if you're wanting more on this one. But again, appreciate everyone as always, and we'll see you all in the next video.